Okay, good afternoon. I am John Scott. I'm the Customer Service Manager for the Jobfox Resume Writing Service at Jobfox. I would like to welcome you and thank you for joining us today. Our topic is going to be post-interview strategies. We will be talking about how you can keep strengthening your position after the interview and stay at the top of the mind with the interviewer. So let's get started. I have a few people on the call today that I would like to introduce. First is our keynote speaker, Shelley Piper. Shelley is president and founder of the Career Doc and also happens to be one of our fantastic certified resume writers. She's a former recruiter and headhunter, so she truly understands the nuances that exist behind the scenes in the recruitment process. She has seen firsthand what helps and what hurts a seeker's position in the post-interview process. Today, Shelley is going to share some of the secrets with us in her presentation, and I really think you all will be grateful for this expert advice. We will also hear from William James, a Jobfox resume client, and he will share his story about how having his resume crafted by Jobfox not only helped him get the interview, but also helped him during and after the interview process to articulate the specific value he could bring to that employer. And then last but not least, I will also have with me some of our resume consultants. They are the folks that evaluated your resumes for free, and you may recognize a few of these names. And that's Andrew Manning, Patrick Taylor, Ian Richards, and Jeremy Brooks. So now to the agenda. Shelley has a 20-minute presentation that will help you formulate your strategy for gaining a competitive advantage over your competition for the job. She will talk about a few key things that can set you apart and stand out in the mind of the hiring manager. After that, we'll go into William's story, and lastly, we will have a short question and answer session at the very end. The way we'd like to run the Q&A is for you to ask your questions using the chat box on the right side of your screen. We'll be collecting your questions throughout the session, and we'll try to answer as many as possible during that Q&A. If your question does not get answered, we will have contact information at the very end of the PowerPoint, and you all can give us a call, shoot us an email, or post on our Twitter and Facebook pages. So with that, I hope you enjoy this presentation, and I will go ahead and turn things over to Shelley.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the webinar. I'm going to be discussing today a topic that's not thought of very often as job seekers approach the market. So I'm glad to have the opportunity to discuss this with you and share with you some strategies that can strengthen your positioning in the marketplace. And I'm just trying to, okay. So one of the most important aspects that I want to try to communicate and convey to you is to reshape your mentality and reshape, your paradigm of what a post-interview strategy should look like, and that your personal marketing and selling does not end after the interview. Too many people approach they get engaged in preparing and researching and investing all their time preparing for the interview. But then after the interview, the more traditional approach has been in the past to send sort of a nondescript, non-impactful thank you letter that reads something like, "Dear John, it was a real pleasure to meet you. Thank you for taking the time to meet with you. I look forward to the opportunity to join your team. Thank you very much, Shelley Piper." And then they also just kind of sit back and take on a more passive approach and wait for the phone to ring. Or sometimes they might make a follow-up call here and there, but they don't really have a structured process or strategy in place. And they're missing a tremendous opportunity to really uniquely differentiate themselves in the marketplace. And we're going to take a look at some ideas on how you can do that. So we're going to look at a new competitive edge approach that puts you more in control and definitely helps to tip the decision in your favor. And the 5 specific strategies that I'll be taking a look at and reviewing with you on how you can gain that competitive edge are: 1 is your thank you letter strategy. Number 2 is your value add response strategy. Number 3 is the importance of maintaining in contact and the different strategies involved in that. Number 4 is the importance of maintaining a warm and positive disposition throughout the process. Take a look at that. And number 5 is some ideas on how you can reshape your existing interview strategy so you can be more effective in gathering the information that you need to develop a stronger post-interview strategy. So, of course, everybody knows about the thank you letter, but we're going to talk about some ideas on how you can really strengthen that. So just as resumes have undergone a dramatic shift in the past 25 years, so also have thank you letters. About 25 years ago, a resume was really more of a formality that generally was like a single sheet of paper that briefly listed a candidate's overall work experience and academic credentials. And as the employment market has changed, increasingly competitive and dynamic and shifting all the time, so did resumes change to become a powerful marketing tool designed to sell a candidate's skills and qualifications and give that person the competitive edge in the market. The same can be true and said for thank you letters. For opportunities that you are very interested in, I recommend taking it to the next level. So some of the strategies and how to develop and customize your thank you letter are, now just put your mindset in, you've just completed the interview, you've just understood and learned about some of the pain points that are going on within that organization. Hopefully you were able to steer and guide and have a dynamic two-way dialogue with your hiring manager or that decision maker. And let's say the hiring company shared with you some of their challenges and perhaps they're in the process of going through a rebranding initiative. And they're in the midst of also sort of an organizational turnaround transformation. They're going through some mergers and acquisitions. It could be a couple of different things going on. So in your thank you letter, you have the opportunity to share your experiences in dealing with these specific pain points or challenging areas that they're struggling with. And you can mention this in your thank you letter. Again, you want to make sure to keep it crisp and succinct. And I also recommend adding a couple of performance metrics or measurable results wherever possible. But you want to really drive this home. I understand what you're going through. I've been there. I've done that. I'm a solution provider for you. Let's say the hiring company shared a major problem they were currently working to resolve. Maybe it could be at a more tactical level. Again, you could highlight how you've solved the same or similar problems before in other environments, and also make sure to mention what the results were, okay, and how it impacted bottom line. If the hiring company communicated to you an objection in hiring you, a reason why they were concerned about hiring you, you can respond to this in your thank you letter. You know, you have time to process it, and you go, oh, this was a concern that they had, and you can mention why that wouldn't be such a concern and kind of give your spiel in your thank you letter. Again, keep it crisp and succinct. Or suppose there was something that was really important with regards to experience or credentials or training that you forgot to mention during the interview. This gives you the perfect time to address that and mention that in the thank you letter to make sure that you're giving the hiring decision makers the additional ammo they need to validate the decision to hire you. By taking the time to utilize this opportunity, using a thank you letter as a second-tier marketing tool, you will be able to powerfully differentiate your candidacy from other candidates being interviewed for that position. Now, the second strategy, call it a value-add response strategy, and I really like this. This is a way to augment, first of all, your customized thank you letter. In addition, you can leverage this strategy, let's say in a situation where the hiring process you found is going to be a long, extended process, maybe a couple of months, or or perhaps another situation would be if you were perhaps the first candidate that they were interviewing and they have maybe 5 or 6 more people they're going to be interviewing. This is also a great way to continue to stay in touch and keep top of mind. So let's say that you are further along in the interview process. You're at about the 3rd or the 4th interview. You passed the screening process and you're now in discussion with the key hiring decision makers. At this juncture, instead of just sending a thank you letter, you can even take this to another level of impact. For example, 48 hours after the interview, you write your strategic customized thank you letter, and in addition, you can follow up with a value-add response. An idea of what that would look like is one job seeker had a great interview for a senior sales leadership position, and during the interview, his potential boss discussed how the salespeople were not successfully selling to C-level executives. The job seeker, therefore, followed up by sending his potential boss a book on C-level selling strategies. And he incorporated this with his thank you letter and a quick value-add response note that said, I enjoyed our discussions yesterday and discussing the challenges of selling to C-level executives. Here's a book I recommend to overcome some of those problems, and you might want to pass along to your sales executives. And the person went on into their thank you letter. But it really stepped up his game and uniquely differentiated him within that space. Some other ideas would be, and after an interview that focused on building strategic alliances, a job seeker sent his prospective boss an email link to a contemporary article on strategic alliances. Or another situation, a job seeker sent a follow-up email on new products that were going to be launched by a competitor. Or another situation, a candidate for an administrative assistant position sent her prospective boss a list of office organization techniques along with her customized strategic thank you letter. To see how this uniquely differentiates, and I like this, having been a recruiter and having been on the other end of this, and let's say I have maybe 2 to 3 different candidates that I'm like, boy, I'm just not sure which way to go on this. I can't quite decide. Doing something like this will make all the difference in the world, and uniquely having an impact. You're telling me, I get your game, I get your pain points, I have solutions, I'm the person who can help you through this. Number 3 is the importance of maintaining contact. Now, every job search coach has, there's a spectrum of this. So I always recommend gauging it accordingly to what kind of position you're pursuing, and also gauging it according to the personality and the culture of the individuals that you're interviewing with. But by proactively building and maintaining that relationship by following up with a phone call, it uniquely differentiates you from a more passive candidate. It's a way of keeping top of mind, really building that relationship, and additionally really showing that you're genuinely interested in the opportunity. You'd be surprised at that real sense of authenticity and how much of a difference that can make on their decision. But you want to be cautious not to overdo it and become annoying. I recommend setting a pace that works. So let's say, yes, like I said, some career strategists recommend, they say, call every single week. I personally don't recommend this unless if you're pursuing, let's say, a sales or business development opportunity where I would expect you to be more aggressive in your approach, and therefore I would have respect for this. But if it's not for a sales or business development approach, I would be a little concerned if you're constantly calling me. I would maybe, from on the receiving end of this, I might think this person's too pushy or too aggressive. I'm not sure if I really want them on my team. I'm not sure if me and my team are going to be able to really mesh well with this person. So, you have to, like I said, really create a balance, engage it according to the personality and the culture of the organization. So I really recommend individuals that as you're coming to closure in your interview to be sure to ask questions so you can get clarification on what their expected turnaround process is. Asking questions such as, when do you expect to make your decision? What is your hiring process? What are the next steps? And when could I expect to hear back from you on your decision? And then be quiet and listen carefully to learn and to gauge what would be an appropriate post-interview strategy for follow-up. So although you don't want to be pushy, you also don't want to become too passive. Find a pace that works, and you want to be sure to be consistent instead of a plan for follow-up. Okay, so the next point I want to make sure to communicate to you, a lot of times people overlook the importance of this, and that is to maintain a positive and warm disposition, especially in your follow-up calls and your follow-up communication. I do say this from experience, had been hounded by people following up, and they sort of had like a negative disposition on the receiving end when I was trying to discuss with them some of the setbacks we were having. And I didn't appreciate getting this negativity towards me about our process, and it kind of started to move that person to the lower rung of who we would decide to move forward in the process. It's really important to watch your mood and to keep positive in all your communications with them. And one of the things I like to stress to people, especially since people are so used to the days when there used to be a candidate-driven market, where the turnaround was so fast and furious to get people on board, that's not necessarily the case today. It really, the process has slowed down considerably for many organizations, and there's many reasons for this. And the better you're able to set realistic expectations at the beginning of the process, the more you're going to be able to manage your mood. And that shows up when you're having these follow-up conversations with them. One other additional point here I'd like to stress is because sometimes people get disgruntled, or they didn't have a very positive interview experience, or they didn't like the person they were interviewing with, or whatever the situation may be. You want to make sure that you are staying away from the internet. Too many situations where people have left a public note, if you will, on the internet. It could be on Facebook. It could be wherever it may be. And that information gets out there, and if a recruiter or a hiring manager sees that, it really sets a tone that you can't be trusted with your level of professionalism. And I have just seen too many situations, or heard of too many situations, where people have had jobs taken, job opportunities kind of taken away from them because information was found on the internet. So you want to be really careful, again, to manage your mood, and if stay away from the internet if you're feeling a little frustrated, just so you don't get into a situation when you're writing something you're going to regret. Okay. So the last point I want to make here is the importance of really taking the time to sit down and reflect how the interview went, and then to also kind of reshape some of your existing interview strategies. Every good salesperson knows, and getting a job is basically a sales role. You're in a sales role when you're doing this. And so following the interview, you want to make sure to take a little time to reflect, what went well, what didn't go well. What kind of additional areas do you need to work on so you can be better prepared for the next interview? And I also recommend writing down some of the key pain points that were discussed, so that when you are in your post-interview strategy, you can focus and strategize your thank you letter, your value-add response, your communications accordingly, and remember all the different pain points that were discussed, and keep the content fresh, or keep the conversation going. Additionally, again, just to go back to some of the other tactics that were mentioned, that in your interviewing strategy, you want to make sure to include that component that before you're bringing it to closure, you ask specific questions to understand their process, so you can gauge accordingly what your post-interview strategy will be and what that will look like. And I do believe that is it. We've gone through this pretty quickly, but the key points were stressed, and I hope that this has been insightful and useful for a lot of people as they're heading out. January, February, and March are really strong hiring times for organizations. But again, the importance of reshaping your existing mentality and paradigm, and to understand that following the interview is still a great opportunity for you to continue to market and sell and differentiate yourself in the marketplace. And John, I'll give this back over to you.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Shelley. That was some great information. We all spend so much time and effort trying to get the interview. I think even preparing for the interview, it really gets lost on us how important it is to stay focused after you have that interview process. The thank you note is such a great opportunity to remind the interview what a perfect fit you are for the job. And let's face it, it's the polite thing to do. So I'm really glad that you hit on those points. Some things that I took away, I really liked how you emphasized walking the fine line of being too pushy and aggressive versus being too passive. That's something that I hear about a lot from customers and, former Jobfox clients, and, how important it is to stay positive. You really don't want to burn any bridges. because that can really be the kiss of death for a job opportunity that you have. So again, thank you so much. Next on the agenda, we have William James. William landed his new job at the Educational Management Corporation shortly after he had his resume written by Jobfox. So we're going to let him tell his story, why he felt the process of having his resume written by Jobfox made all the difference in his search. Just so you all know, we recorded William's portion of this presentation as he was unavailable to make today's event, but we'll go ahead and play this recording now and get into the question and answer session afterward. All right, so I'll go ahead and play that recording now.
And I'm glad to be here today to share my experience with all the participants today. And what I found to be the best benefit to me was the way that Jobfox took my experience, my accomplishments, and my educational background, and they created a document that was concise and to the point. This document that was created for me actually made me stand out from the rest, not only before, but also during and after the interview process. The resume that Jobfox wrote helped me send meaningful follow-ups to my now current employer. I looked at my accomplishments on my resume, and I was able to write a synopsis of why I was the best person for the job. And it was very easy to do that because of the document that I had prepared for me by Jobfox. The resume written by Jobfox, the answers I crafted during the interview, and the follow-up regarding my candidacy helped me land my current job today. And I encourage anyone out there that is in the same position that I was to take advantage of this service because it does make a big difference and to set you apart in today's competitive job market.
All right, great. So now we are ready to move on to the question and answer session. I've taken a look. We have some great questions for our participants. Just so you know, if your question does not get addressed, you can always reach us through our Twitter page @Jobfox or our Facebook wall. You can also give us a call or shoot us an email, and we'll go ahead and put that information up later. But first, let's go ahead and answer some of these. So one question that we had is for Shelley, and that is, when should a discussion about compensation occur if it was not discussed in the interview? Should I bring it up?
That is a very, very good question. Of course, in the thank you letter, I would strongly recommend not bringing any of that sort of questioning up. That's not the time and the place for it. And the rule of thumb is to not be the one who brings up compensation in the interview, but to let the hiring manager or the recruiter bring that up in the interview. Otherwise, there's concerns that on the receiving end that all that person really cares about is the compensation and the salary and the benefits, and they're not really interested in the opportunity, and they're not really interested in what the culture of the organization and the synergy of the team, what's going on there. So that's usually the rule of thumb, is to wait until they bring it up in the interview and then to move about that conversation accordingly.
Okay, thank you. Another question we had that I'll go ahead and answer is, can you give me an example of some good questions to ask in the interview that will make a positive, lasting impression on the interviewer? So, a couple examples that I'll give that I took down when I saw this question. One of them is, how do I get an A in this job? And I really like this question because it gives you some insight into what the hiring manager or the HR rep considers most important for the position that you're interviewing for. Once you know the response to that, then you can target your answers accordingly. So you're able to kind of support your ability to do those things well by taking that feedback and responding. Another question that we recommend is, what are the strengths and weaknesses of my predecessor? And this kind of allows for a smart candidate to follow up with a statement about yourself that shows you're stronger and you do not suffer from those same weaknesses that the predecessor may have had. It really kind of illustrates your ability to think on your toes. Again, using the feedback from the person you're interviewing with to really highlight your skills and your strengths. Okay. The next question that we have, I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Patrick. He's one of our resume consultants. And this one is, I'd like to have my resume, cover letter, and thank you note written by Jobfox. do you have a package that includes all three?
Absolutely. Yeah, we have a full resume package available to everyone that attends today's webinar. And that includes, of course, the resume, which is rewritten and reformatted by our professional writers. It also includes an e-resume. This e-resume is perfect for electronic use when, say, you're uploading it to a database or simply copying and pasting onto an employer site. And that's really what it was designed for. And you also receive a reusable cover letter that you can tailor specifically to the jobs you're looking for. And most relevant to today's webinar, we do include that thank you note that your writer will create for you. And it's just a great follow-up that you can send out to whomever you need and whoever really takes the time to speak to you about the job.
All right. Thank you, Patrick. One more question that will go to Shelley. How long should my thank you note be? And should it be in the version of an email or handwritten note?
Everybody has a different strategy, but I personally like to recommend sending the type of thank you letter that I was discussing, the more customized approach for opportunities that you're very interested in. I like to recommend sending that by mail within the first 24 to 48 hours after the interview, because it's a lot easier to structure the type of letter I was discussing, and just is more impactful and more professional. One of the techniques I like to recommend, I'm just really all about keeping a warm, fuzzy sort of relationship with the person you interviewed with if you are interested in the opportunity. And just, I like to recommend sending a short email that mentions that you'll be following up pursuant to the interview with additional information, and then follow up with something in the mail that's a little bit more involved with regards to some of the issues that were discussed in the interview. That's a strategy that I like to work with clients, and it has proven to be very successful in differentiating them and making impact following the interview.
Okay. Also, as a follow-up to that, we had somebody ask us if it's appropriate to send the thank you note to each hiring manager or just the individual that you interviewed with. Do you have any insight on that?
I like the idea of corresponding to everybody involved that you met with or you had some sort of communication with. You don't know who is going to be the key influencers within that decision-making process. So any sort of contact and relationship-building opportunity that you have with the individuals that are involved in the process, I recommend sending a thank you to them as well.
Okay, great. And I think we have time for one more question. Patrick, if you don't mind taking this, how is the Jobfox resume service going to help me land more interviews? I know this is, kind of leading up to the interview, not necessarily the post-interview process, but could you go into a little more detail on that?
Absolutely. That is definitely one of the most common questions that we have as resume consultants. Just to start off, we're very confident in our resume service. Our clients, on average, receive about 2 to 3 times the responses from employers than those that craft their own resumes. And those responses are translated into both callbacks and interviews. Now, we do this because, mainly because of the caliber of our writers. We have over 125 industry-specific writers on staff, and each of them has at least 5 years of experience creating resumes in their field of expertise, and most have over 10. And thus, your individual writer will be able to really tailor that resume towards the jobs that you're looking for. And that's something that's unusual in the job market. So you'll have someone who's really an expert. And with that expertise, we also provide keyword optimization with each of our resumes. And in previous webinars, we've spoken about ATS programs. These are programs that employers use to look for certain keywords and phrases in the resume. And with that keyword optimization, we really try to utilize a resume to get through those programs and get you seen by a real human being, because those ATS programs, they throw out a lot of good resumes. And we really try to use those services and all of our expertise to get you in front of a human being and into that seat for that interview.
All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming. Before we wrap up, if you would like help rewriting your resume, we are offering a special package and discount to anyone that has attended this workshop. It's the best discount that we have. It includes a full resume rewrite, a cover letter, an e-version of your resume that is specifically formatted for submitting to databases. As a bonus, we've included a free thank you note that can be used after the interview. And this package also includes a new feature that we recently introduced. It's a 60-day interview guarantee. We state that if you do not get an interview within the first 60 days after your resume is rewritten, we will rewrite it again for free. So to purchase this package, you can call into our resume line now and use the code word Shelly. Later today, we'll be sending a link to purchase this package online. You can give us a call at 877-456-2369. You can ask any one of our resume consultants, Patrick, Andrew, Ian, anybody, any questions that you may have that weren't necessarily addressed in this presentation. Also, if you want to go on to our Twitter page, our tag is @Jobfox. We also have a Facebook page where you can write on our wall, like our page for more relevant tips, advice that our experts may have. We do these webinars pretty regularly, so we'll be posting that information on there soon. I want to close just by saying thank you for attending. I hope all the information we shared was helpful, and I wish you all the best in your job search. That concludes today's webinar.